Hey guys, you are on the most mystical channel, Mr. Creepy Depp. Today I'm going to tell you 3 scary stories about gas stations. Huge request. Subscribe to my channel and put a like under this video. This will give me the opportunity to tell longer stories for you. Thank you all for your support and enjoy watching. It was about 3 a.m. when I pulled into the gas station. Nestled in the thick of the forest, the eerie silence of the night was only broken by the soft hum of my car engine. I got out to refuel. Once done, I headed inside to pay, leaving my car unlocked, a decision I would soon regret. As I rummaged through my wallet at the counter, a sudden screech of tires jolted me. I spun around, only to see my car being driven away, its taillights disappearing into the darkness. In desperation, I ran out to try to catch up with my car. Of course, it was a futile idea. Then I went inside the gas station, hoping to find the attendant and check the surveillance cameras. But the small, dimly lit room was empty, not a soul in sight. Confused and scared, I decided to wait, hoping for anyone, to show up. Hours ticked by, the silence becoming more oppressive, the darkness outside seeming to creep into the room. I was about to give up when headlights pierced through the gloom. A car, old and battered, pulled into the station. I watched, hidden behind the window, as 2 figures emerged. They opened the trunk and, to my utter horror, pulled out a body bag. It was unmistakably human in shape. My bosom pounded as they dragged the bag into the woods and disappeared among the trees. I should have left, but curiosity and fear rooted me to the spot. I strained my eyes, trying to see where they went. Thrust by an inexplicable urge, I cautiously stepped out of the gas station, making sure to stay hidden in the shadows. My feet moved almost against my will, drawn toward the sinister spectacle unfolding in the forest. The crunch of dried leaves underfoot seemed deafening in the still night, and I paused every few steps, my mind racing to make sure I wasn't being heard. As I drew closer, I could see the 2 men, their movements hurried and frantic. They were now at the edge of the river. With a final heave, they tossed the body bag into the river. The bag hit the water with a sickening splash, quickly swallowed by the dark, flowing current. They stood there for a moment, as if to make sure their gruesome task was complete, then turned and walked back towards their car. Realizing the danger I was in, I retraced my steps, moving as quickly and quietly as I could back to the gas station. I slipped inside and crouched behind the cash register, my breathing shallow, trying to silence the loud thumping of my heart. But fortune wasn't on my side. One of the men, as if sensing something amiss, paused at the door of the gas station. The door creaked open and he stepped inside. The room felt colder, the air thicker. I held my breath, praying he wouldn't notice me. He did. Our eyes met for a split second, and a cruel smile crept across his face. He lunged towards me, but I was quicker. I sprang to my feet and dashed towards the back of the station. My mind was racing, but my survival instincts were in overdrive. I spotted a door, the back exit, and to my relief, it was ajar. I burst through it, the fresh night air hitting my face like a slap. I didn't look back, not even for a moment. I could hear his footsteps pounding behind me, getting closer with every passing second. The forest ahead loomed dark and unwelcoming, but it was my only chance. With a deep breath, I plunged into the darkness, the trees swallowing me whole. I darted through the dense forest, with branches whipping against my face and the ground uneven under my feet. The man's footsteps faded behind me, lost in the vast, dark wilderness. I didn't know where I was going, but the river seemed like a lifeline, a guide that might lead me to safety or to civilization. After what felt like hours, with my lungs burning and legs aching, I slowed down. The river's gentle babbling was a constant companion, a soothing escape from the mess of the night. I followed the riverbed, hoping it would lead me to a village or a road. The night was transforming, a heavy fog beginning to rise from the ground, enveloping the trees and river in a ghostly shroud. It was disorienting, the world around me turning into a blurred, damp maze. Every sound seemed amplified in the fog, every rustle of leaves making me jump. Then something unbelievable happened. The fog began to thin, revealing a sight that made my hair stand on end. I was back at the same gas station. For a minute, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, that fear and exhaustion had finally taken their toll. But no, it was unmistakably the same place, the same dimly lit sign flickering in the fog. Trepidation filled me as I approached, my steps hesitant. Something was off. When I reached the front door, my worst fears were confirmed. Scrawled across it, in letters dripping like fresh wounds, was a message written in blood. "You weren't supposed to see this. We'll find you." Those words horrified me. I was caught in a nightmare, and every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide. But where? I was trapped in a loop, the gas station a sinister anchor in this twisted reality. I stood there, the mist swirling around me, the eerie silence of the night broken only by my heavy breathing. What to do next? The message was clear. They were after me, and this was far from over. The gas station with its ominous message made it clear that I couldn't stay there. Scanning the area, my eyes caught sight of a dilapidated shed a short distance away, its weathered wood and rusty hinges suggesting years of neglect. It wasn't much, but it was shelter, a temporary haven from the night's horrors. With cautious steps, I approached the shed. The door creaked ominously as I pushed it open, revealing a cramped space filled with old gardening tools and the musty smell of decay. It was far from comfortable, but it was better than being exposed. I managed to wedge the door shut with an old shovel, the makeshift lock giving me a frail sense of security. Sleep was an impossible dream. Every little sound, every rustle of leaves outside, sent my pulse racing. I lay on the cold, hard floor, my eyes wide open, staring into the darkness. Time seemed to stretch and warp, the night endless. The distant sound of cars periodically broke the silence, each one making me nervous. Was it them? Were they coming back for me? Once, a car stopped at the gas station. Voices, muffled but agitated, drifted to my hiding spot. They were arguing, their words indecipherable but their tone unmistakably heated. After what felt like an eternity, the car's engine roared back to life, and it sped away. I was relieved, but the fear remained. As the first light of dawn began to pierce the night, I knew I had to leave. The shed, my temporary sanctuary, felt like a tomb as the daylight crept in. Stepping outside, the world felt different, as if the night's events had altered it somehow. I didn't have to wait long on the roadside. A trucker, early on his route, pulled over. He looked at me with a mix of concern and curiosity, but didn't ask many questions. I was grateful for that. The ride home was silent, my mind still reeling from the night's events. Upon reaching home, my first stop was the police station. I recounted everything: the stolen car, the body, the message in blood. The officers listened, their expressions a mix of skepticism and apprehension. They promised to investigate, to look into the car theft and the strange occurrences at the gas station. But as I left the station, a frightening realization set in. The ordeal might be over, but the shadow it cast lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still being watched, that the events of that night were far from concluded. My life, once ordinary, now felt like a fragile thread, dangling precariously over an abyss of unknown terrors. Driving back from my friend's house late at night, the road stretched endlessly before me. Engrossed in the thoughts of the evening, I hadn't noticed the glaring warning light on my dashboard until it was too late. My gas was dangerously low. A quick glance at the GPS confirmed my fears. I was far from the city, with no gas station in sight. My car was sputtering, its last drops of fuel spent. I coasted to a stop on the side of the road, under the watchful gaze of the moon. Resigned, I remembered the canister I kept in the trunk for such emergencies. Equipped with it and a flashlight, I locked my car and began the long, eerie walk to find a gas station. The night was disturbingly quiet. As I walked, the only sound was the crunch of gravel under my feet. Not a single car passed by, amplifying my sense of isolation in the vast, dark landscape. After about 40 minutes, my perseverance paid off. The dimly lit outline of a gas station appeared, a beacon in the darkness. But as I got closer to her, I started to feel a little uneasy. The gas station looked like it had been abandoned for a long time, but I had no choice. Inside, the atmosphere was stale and unwelcoming. A strange man behind the counter eyed me with an unreadable expression as I explained my predicament. Surprisingly, he agreed to help, offering to fill my canister and even drive me back to my stranded car. As we stood by the fuel pump, the silence of the night felt oppressive. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was wrong. The man's presence, though helpful, seemed oddly menacing in the dim light. Once the canister was filled, we went back inside. The man's touch was icy as he handed me the receipt. It sent an involuntary shiver down my body. He gestured towards his old, battered truck, offering a ride back to my car. As I handed over the payment for the gasoline, I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling of insecurity. But I brushed it aside, telling myself I was just being paranoid. The man's truck was old and creaky, and as we got in, it groaned under our weight. His question cut through the silence like a sharp blade. "Did you drive here alone? Or is there someone waiting for you in the car?" It was a strange question, frightening in its implications. I replied truthfully, albeit hesitantly, that I was alone. A smile crept onto his face, not comforting but rather disconcerting. As the lights of my car came into view, I thought, I'm done with the scariest part. "You can stop here," I said, pointing. But to my horror, he pressed down on the accelerator, speeding past my car. I was horrified. "What are you doing?" I yelled, my voice laced with fear and confusion. Without a word, he suddenly reached over, trying to push me out of the moving vehicle. I fought back, grappling with him as the truck swerved in a mad dash. In a desperate move, I yanked the handbrake, sending the truck into a screeching halt. I didn't wait to think. I flung the door open and bolted out. Gathering my emotions, I ran as hard as I could to my car. Hands shaking, I quickly filled the tank with the gas from the canister. I didn't dare look back, afraid of what I might see. As soon as the canister was empty, I threw it aside, jumped into my car, and drove off as fast as I could. As I put distance between myself and the gas station, 1,000 questions raced through my mind. Who was that man? What did he want with me? The fear of what might have happened if I hadn't escaped made this situation truly deadly. I didn't stop driving until I reached the safety of the city lights. Later, sitting in the comfort of my home, I couldn't help but reflect on the events of the night. I realized just how lucky I had been to escape unharmed. It was a stark reminder of how quickly situations can turn dangerous, and how important it is to always be aware of one's surroundings and trust one's instincts. That night, I promised myself to always be more cautious, understanding that not every helping hand is there to save you. I have been in the trucking business for many years, familiar with every nook and cranny of the long, winding highways. After completing a particularly grueling route, my fuel gauge warned me it was time to refuel. That's when I stumbled upon it, an ordinary-looking gas station, yet its sparkling newness suggested it had just opened its doors. Oddly, it was nestled in the deep, almost unnerving woods, a location that immediately set off a silent alarm in my head. Climbing out of my truck, I followed my usual routine, stretching my legs and surveying the area. That's when I saw it. It was a terrifying sight that made my eyes blurry. In the window of the gas station, a man stood motionless, his gaze fixed intently on me. Unnerved, I attempted a friendly wave, but he remained as still as a statue, his eyes boring into mine. Brushing off the initial discomfort, I chalked it up to a bizarre joke or maybe a mannequin placed there by the owner for some odd reason. Curiosity getting the better of me, I approached the window for a closer look. As I neared, the details of his appearance became clearer, his pale, almost ghostly complexion, and the eerie stillness of his posture. A mixture of fear and intrigue drove me forward. Just as I was a mere few feet from the window, a sudden, strange noise echoed from the back of the gas station. It was a sound unlike anything I had ever heard before, a cross between a groan and a hiss. I paused, my hand hovering inches from the glass, debating whether to investigate further or retreat to the safety of my truck. That otherworldly sound made me whip around instinctively, but it was the sight that greeted me when I turned back to the window that truly froze my blood. The man, or whatever it was, had shifted his position. Now he was hunched over, his face mere inches from the glass, staring directly into my eyes. What struck me most was the expression on his face, a haunting mixture of sadness and something else, indescribable, yet deeply unsettling. It was as if he was smiling, but the smile was turned upside down, a twisted mirror of sorrow. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to leave, to not test my fate any further. With a shudder, I backed away from the window, my eyes locked on the sorrowful figure until the last possible moment. I hurried back to my truck, the eerie silence of the woods pressing in around me. Once inside, I locked the doors and started the engine, not even daring to glance back at the gas station. In all my years of trucking, I'd never encountered anything like it. It felt like a brush with something otherworldly, a moment suspended between reality and a nightmare. The rest of the drive to the next gas station was tense, every shadow in the trees seeming to hide secrets. Even after I found another station and filled up, the image of the bent figure and its upside-down smile haunted me. It was a reminder that the world is full of mysteries, some of which are better left unexplored. That night, as I lay in my truck trying to sleep, the memory of that gas station in the deep woods lingered in my mind, a reminder of the unknown that lurks just out of sight on even the most ordinary of roads. That's all for today. I hope my stories made an impression on you. If so, don't forget to put a like under this video and subscribe to the channel. In the next videos, you are waiting for the most mystical stories from around the world. Do not miss. See you in the new video.